Hello again, I'm Rob Carlson, and I'm glad to be with you to further my brief introduction into the prayer style that's called Centering Contemplative Prayer, that I believe is a difference maker for our spiritual journeys with God, for individuals, and I believe it also for our faith communities as well. Centering Contemplative Prayer provides us with a spiritual process that deeply impacts who we are and what we're about. When we use this listening style with a focus on the presence of God in our worlds, we begin to notice things that we hadn't seen before. We see with the eyes of God. We hear with the ears of God. We believe with the heart of God. And we begin to know with the mind of God, living by the power and presence of God in ways that we might never have known before. Our intuitive awareness then empowers us. It empowers us into opportunities that we might also not have noticed or even considered before. We're given the insights and we're given the courage then to step forward creatively and confidently, confident of our awareness and excited to see what's going to be happening next. When we pray, our souls begin to ferment and expand and come to life in remarkable humility, boldness, and zeal all at the same time. We know that something's happening through and because of this quiet time with God. We might not be able to explain it right away, and though we're feeling something, it's different than previous God awarenesses or experiences. But God is very much real. There is no doubt. And as we find ourselves more intuitively aware of God, our souls are being impacted over and over again. We are aware, and we know that we're being compelled and called somehow and somewhere, all the while knowing a comfort and satisfaction with the journey that's before us. Through centering contemplative prayer, we're giving the spiritual wherewithal to move even further into sacred spaces that God has prepared for us. And that deep awareness begins to bear more fully upon and into our everyday and ordinary lives. I want to pause for just a moment to say that we also do this style of prayer, centering contemplative, for vitality, the Florida Bahamas Synod's process for visioning and strategic planning for congregations. And it's, as people gather together to pray, it's producing some great and growing results for congregations and for the people. It's beginning to make an impact. Centering contemplative prayer also calms anxiety. It removes fears and self-doubts. It empowers with genuine humility and love, agape, for others, even those we are not aware of before or have literally stayed away from. It builds confidence and hope and willingness while we're knowing some sense of fulfillment being birthed. Now, I'll be honest, it will take a bit of time to master the prayer style because we're more accustomed to our quick and easy please and thank you prayers and our long lists of prayer that we hope God will engage and do something about. And please know, I do encourage us to pray all of these styles of prayer because every style of prayer is good. It's necessary, important. It opens the world and opens us up to God and God's possibilities. In congregations, we need every style of a prayer so that our hearts and minds are focused into and then from God. Prayer truly is the difference maker. Now, centering contemplative prayer is a patient, listening prayer process by which we find ourselves attuned to God and eventually to others as well in a different kind of way. Time and patience makes this style of prayer effective. Time and patience, it's critical. More than that, as I said before, centering contemplative prayer provides an intuitive connection with God by means of focused listening. First, we listen for God. That's the centering part. And second, we'll begin to naturally know that we are in God's presence, hearing what's being said. And that's the contemplative part, or listening to God. Please know that contemplation in this context is not so much about considering with our mind what we're thinking about. Instead, it's about noticing from our soul what's happening, first with God, then with ourselves, and even further with and for other people. In fact, when I teach about centering contemplative prayer, each time we meet, I always ask the class one question. What are you noticing? It's a simple question. I might add, what are you noticing that you hadn't noticed before? Centering contemplative prayer is about listening so well that we're intuitively aware of God and all of God's people in God's kingdom. And even more so, we're listening and noticing so well that we notice how God's kingdom is impacting and how our particular place has value in it. It's reflective of Jesus going away by himself to abide in God's presence. It's what Jesus' disciples asked him about. Teach us to pray like you do, will you? And also Jesus talks about, in Matthew 6, going to a room by yourself to pray. And he's not just talking about a room in the house, he's talking about the room of the soul. Now, there's some specific resources that can help. Thomas Keating is very helpful. Intimacy with God, an introduction to centering prayer. Another resource, again by Thomas Keating, is Open Mind, Open Heart. And there's also a good resource by Martin Laird called Into the Silent Land. There's also, if you want, there's an app store, and this is what the app will look like. In the next video, we're going to learn how to practice centering contemplative prayer. And it's my hope you'll take the next steps into this incredible style, because it will not only benefit you, but it will benefit your congregation, your family, and your relationships, whether on the job or into the community. Every place you live, it cannot help but to make a profound difference. God is with us. Return and join me the next time.